All right, welcome back to Inside College Basketball Now. I'm John Rothstein, pleased to be joined by two-time national champion and future Hall of Famer Dan Hurley, doing the tour right now around the country to promote your new book, Never Stop. Are you tired of interviews yet?
Oh man, what do they call this? The car wash or whatever when you put
the car wash, yeah.
But if the book, it's titled Never Stop because I never stopped,
Yeah.
and I won't stop.
You won't stop. No, I'm sure you felt during the process of this book with a great author, Ian O'Connor, who is a revered and renowned author, you probably felt like you weren't stopping. What was it like writing a book?
Yeah, I mean, there was some moments of hoping it would stop, just because it's a tough process.
Yeah.
And if you care about the project and you want the project to be, impactful, books have been impactful in my life. I didn't want this to be a thing where you just do something, win a couple championships, and then you just go do what people do, is just go write a book, and and you don't put a lot of effort into it. But I wanted this book to have a chance to maybe be impactful, maybe inspire, maybe motivate. So hopefully it helps people.
Now, you're as meticulous as any person I've ever met with your time. I know you need your quiet time in the morning. What is it, the sauna, the hot tub, all that stuff, before practice to get everything out. So what is it like for Dan Hurley, the perfectionist, the meticulous coach, to balance a book tour with the start of practice?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we're able to get the practice done on a Sunday, our first back-to-back practice weekend, really in training camp mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, the practices are hand-to-hand combat right now. We're not even so much focused on executing quality basketball as much as we're trying to create a mentality, a toughness, a will, a grittiness in terms of the practice plan. And then now today you flip and you're in New York promoting a book after just being in a brutality weekend of training camp practice. So you flip your brain and and you spend the day doing a promotion, and then but my mind keeps going in and out between who should be on the blue team tomorrow, who should be on the gray team. Do I like those offensive sets, and what is the practice plan tomorrow?
Well, you said gritty, you said toughness. Those are some of the adjectives, too, that a lot of people would probably use to describe your childhood. Mm-hmm. And your childhood in sports started at a very, very early age. You were a runner very early in Jersey City. You heard the term in the book, quiet your feet, when you were doing those early races. What was it like at such an early age to be thrusted into sports?
It's almost second nature. Just being a 5-year-old, and I've got the picture in my office of running 3.5 mile road races as a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Running to Bayonne Park and back. From where we lived in Jersey City. So starting out at an early age and being in distance running and having such high standards placed upon you by your father, and having an older brother that's about excellence and pushing you. It's it creates standards that are going to be impactful throughout the rest of your life. It's helped make me a better coach today, but I think I just struggled at a younger age maybe with that turning into a perfectionism that wasn't always healthy. It's also morphed into a fear of failure and an insecurity that drives me. When controlled properly is beneficial. When you can't control it properly, it's brutality.
And one of the things you could tell early in this book was that it was really important to your father that you and your brother did not have a lot of idle time, especially in Jersey City. When you look back on that structure that you had in your childhood, how much is that a foundation right now for the success that you've had?
Yeah, listen, my life, any success I've had, it's been built on family, just a strong family growing up. The family that I have now with my wife and my two sons, that foundation of love and sacrifice. But then, just being from a blue collar place where, you're trying to, I don't want to say get out of Jersey City, but the kids that you grow up with in Jersey City aren't as fortunate. They did not have a way out. They didn't have a purpose, did not have an activity that could drive them developing the work ethic, the discipline, the accountability, the responsibility. to be able to get out of Jersey City, not end up in jail, not end up dead, not end up addicted to a substance.
The name of the book is Never Stop, Dan Hurley with Ian O'Connor. Available on Amazon as well, as you can see right there. We want to drive up those New York Times bestseller lists right now for this book because we're thinking mostly in our hearts for the UConn staff and what's ahead of them the next 6 months. One thing, and you talked about Jersey City, I remember vividly when you won the title in 2023 on the floor. There was a lot of pride in your voice when you said that, but that's really the genesis of the Dan Hurley comparison game. And Theodore Roosevelt once said that comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah. You, in a lot of ways, live that. Why did you feel the need, regardless if you were a player or a coach, to always compare?
Well, I would say as a young player, it's something that not something I consciously wanted to do. It's when you become a junior or a senior in high school, you're playing at Seton Hall, and your brother's Bobby Hurley. Like that people do it for you, and they kind of implant that in your brain as you hear the whispers, or hey, he's not as good as his brother, or Bobby's better, or those things. Just you end up ruminating on those things, and it's hard to control your mind. And it's a brutal practice. It leads to nothing but suffering, and it's not something. It's something that I've been able to kind of grow out of. I think my only measuring stick is for myself is, am I continuing to improve and evolve as a coach? I think it's healthy to want to be the best coach in the sport. Yeah. But I think it's unhealthy now where you're comparing yourself directly to another human being.
In a lot of promotions that you've done for this book that I listened to in preparation for this chat today, you've used the term insecurity a lot with, the way you go about things. And from my vantage point, for somebody who's known you now 20 years and thinking back to you at Wagner when you would go to Pitt and dominate a Pitt team, back at Rhode Island when you had great wins against Cincinnati and Seton Hall and other teams that you beat, I think you're the furthest thing from insecure because you have supreme confidence in yourself as a coach. How do you balance the confidence that you have in your own abilities with the fear of maybe not maintaining what you've built?
Yeah, I think you're right. I do have a lot of confidence.
Tons of confidence.
I show up to the arena with a lot of swagger.
Yeah.
And this was pre-championship.
This was Wagner.
This was Wagner. I mean, this was from...
We were eating at the trash can on Staten Island, that dive bar you took me to at the...
And then the pizza was at Joe and Pat's?
I believe so, or the Danino's.
And then at the bottom of the hill...
It was the
Roadhouse.
The Roadhouse, yeah.
Roadhouse, shout out Roadhouse, early recruiting and staff dinners.
Right.
I mean, I've worked at my craft for a long time. I've been a coach for almost 30 years. I've been a head coach for a really, really long time at various levels. So I'm experienced, and I think the insecurity piece is knowing that if you stay the same, if you don't continue to get better every single day, if you don't work with great urgency, if you become complacent, like that's what drives me. It drives my preparation. It drives my continuing mindset of trying to get better and learn new tactics and learn different systems and learn how to improve our culture. I think if you're staying the same, you're getting worse because people are coming for you.
Well, people are definitely coming for you when you started your college career as a player. And one of the things you talk about in this book is you were a partier when you got to Seton Hall, and you probably didn't take basketball so seriously. And I think in this book, reading it, what would Dan Hurley, the coach, do if he was handling Dan Hurley, the player?
I probably would have been thrown off the team.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think nowadays the relationship between player and coach are a lot different.
Yeah.
There's like an all hours of the day, every second of the day connection in top level programs and organizations that are truly connected. So there's no secrets. There's no I'm not sure that anyone on staff or on my team just knew how bad my behavior was off the court.
Right.
You know, like, whereas now I think if we've got a guy that's making some bad decisions, I'm probably finding out through how well I know my player or how well connected the moles in the program are.
Well-embedded moles.
Well-embedded moles are, chirping in your ear, hey, I think there's something going on, with said player off the court, and he needs an intervention. Whereas I was just allowed to spiral, and the behavior got worse to the point where, my commitment to basketball was as low a level as possible. So I think nowadays you're so dialed into the player.
So many lessons that came out of your time at Seton Hall, but one was probably also the genesis of being a great recruiter, because you were a fifth-year senior. Your wife, Andrea, was a freshman. You started to date. You proposed after a couple of months, and she was leaving school to be married, and you were thinking about a career overseas, and you went into coaching. But I mean, I know you were a good recruiter, but before you were selling UConn, you were able to do that.
Yeah, I saw the life raft on the way out. I saw somebody that maybe could save me. And then what a turn of events for her, when she did say yes.
So she leaves school early?
No, she stayed in.
She stayed in school when you got married?
She stayed in school.
But she was, when you were,
we were engaged.
Okay.
She stayed in school. When we were married, she was no longer in school. So, but when I did engage to her, when I proposed to her, I actually was selling. I'm going to be playing more than likely First Division Italy, First Division Spain. We're going to live, maybe in Florence or somewhere Paris. This is going to be awesome. And then a couple months later, I lost the desire to play, and I took the phys ed, driver's ed, first aid, sex ed, teaching and coaching assistant varsity at St. Anthony for $8,000 a year. So and she did not break off the engagement at that point, as she saw maybe that the star was not shining brightly at that moment.
And this is another thing that was very real about your story in this book. You guys had a lot of hurdles early in your marriage, not just the financial aspect of starting a family, but you had a terrible fire where you lost your home with an infant child. And then on top of that, you did not get financially back from the insurance what you thought you were going to get. And this wasn't $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in debt, but you guys had over $100,000 in debt and you were making no money. What was that like?
Yeah, that was tough. And adding to the equation, my wife, losing her dad at a young age, to cancer, which was incredibly stressful for her family and for all of us. But yeah, I mean, you're trying to build a career. You just get fired at Rutgers. You've got young kids. You've got no money. And for me, it was like I was never home. I was now scrambling at St. Benedict's to build a program, and it was a really, really tough time. I think that a lot of couples can relate to. But we didn't stop. We stayed committed, to each other and committed to our family. And eventually things will turn, and they turned. And she feels a lot better about me, today because of that early struggle that we went through. It really strengthened our relationship and love for each other.
And that led to St. Benedict's, where you became obviously a household name in high school coaching, and it led to Wagner, where you took over a program and completely flipped it. That was the genesis of the Carpenter, if we're being honest with ourselves.
Builder. No one's doing that. You don't necessarily have to be a builder anymore.
No, it's kind of like it's not like you're on Amazon.com for college basketball players, and you're like, well, this could work, that could work.
And that's where I think the pride in the championships that we, the 23 and 24, just having to take over a program when we did, and having to take over a Wagner program and a Rhode Island program, and to have to organically build a program day to day, starting with the staff and practice habits and those small victories along the way. That's why I think I'm so proud of the places I've coached where I've really had to build things, and I think that's not necessarily the case anymore.
And as a coach at Wagner, you had to endure something that a lot of coaches at a lower level endure, and you said this in the book, and I think it's really interesting, about an NEC tournament semifinal game against Robert Morris. I've never felt more tension as a coach, and I've never felt as much tension since. That was a game you lost to Robert Morris. For a guy that's coached in the Final Four and coached deep in the NCAA tournament, that to me is fascinating. What was it like being a favorite and a team expected to go far in a one-bid league.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's butter on the ball. I mean, there's grease on the ball. I mean, it's just they're not the same human beings that you've played 35 games with throughout the year. You know, the pressure, it's your opportunity at that level, right? To finally get attention, to finally get on the big stage, to make the career, to get recognition. And it's like you feel it from the people at the college, for the college. It's like not many chances for Wagner College to get on a national scale or a low Division I program. So for me, I've never been in a halftime locker room with that feeling of panic and impending doom as everyone is completely, their nerves are shot. Probably the closest thing since maybe the Iona game night before, put up or shut up time coming off of the Maryland, New Mexico
State. That was close
State.
In the first half. They had a 2-point lead.
2-point lead, but it felt like it was not the same.
They were making every shot.
They were making shots that were unsustainable, and we were getting all the shots we wanted, and we were playing at a high level. And that's the thing about the UConn first round of the tournament. It's heavy, and I think you saw that this year. Those first round games are a little bit heavy. When we get out of the first round, I think we're supposed to win the tournament.
And, I think a lot of people that probably follow you from the periphery look at like, well, Dan Hurley was like a rocket ship in coaching. And I remember early in Rhode Island in that tenure, there were setbacks. Yeah. And I remember I did a game at Butler your first year, and you guys took Brad Stevens to the wire, and there was a player there. I think this really stunted the start of Rhode Island. There was a player, you had Jordan Hare, who probably, if he stuck with basketball, would have been an NBA player. He leaves the program. You had a great recruit, E.C. Matthews, who endured a major knee injury when you were ready to turn the program. So even though the finished product at Rhode Island was a force, there were a lot of bumps in the road, which, again, build the resiliency. Yeah, I think, I
guess how I've gotten to UConn was more probably traditional.
Yeah.
It's how coaches back in probably the 80s and 90s, got big jobs. And
that means a lot to you.
I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm proud of it. I feel like old school coaches, it's weird, like that reaction and the reaction I get with fans, in public, like fans really enjoy my act.
Yeah.
When I meet them in public, not trolls on social media, but people that I see on the street or I'll see in an airport, that they've seen me on TV and they've seen this guy who's not a fake, who's not a phony, who's just himself, flaws and all. I think they like that. And I think the old school coaches like me because of the way I've gotten the UConn job. 4 years as a college assistant, 1 year as a high school assistant, 9 years as a high school head coach, 2 years low major at Wagner, 6 years at the mid-major before I even got a chance at the big time. So, you could probably see that chip on my shoulder now as a coach that, I've had to really earn my way here, and my first, big head coaching job was certainly not at UConn. I wasn't born on third base, even though I'm a Hurley in basketball.
The name of the book is Never Stop, Dan Hurley with Ian O'Connor. Available on Amazon right now, so we want to spike those, sales early for the New York Times bestseller list. Now, you had a team at Rhode Island twice that won games in the NCAA tournament. One time you beat Creighton, another time you beat Trae Young in Oklahoma. But
back-to-back years.
Back-to-back years. But you had a Final Four team in Oregon on the ropes, like it was Ali against Foreman, so on and so forth, and they were doing like the rope.
Why are you doing this right now?
What?
Why are you doing this?
Because we're getting into the depths right now of the interview. Not a lot of people are going to do this, but that team, that Oregon team, when you look back, Peyton Pritchard, Dylan Brooks, Jordan Bell, Tyler Dorsey, Dylan Ennis was a great college player. Even though you've got the hardware, you've had the interest from the NBA, you're on your way to the Naismith Hall of Fame. Because you were at Rhode Island, is that Oregon defeat something that, will always tug at you because you were at Rhode Island?
Haunting, not tugging. Tugging and haunting. Tugging and haunting. I mean, that was a great team. That was a team. And Hassan Martin, who doesn't really play in that game, who was our best player.
And you guys, for 35, 37 minutes, you were in control of the game. I think you were 46-38 at the half.
Up and then up 4, under 4, or up 5, under 5. Our undoing was free throw blockouts. We gave up 2 free throw offensive rebounds that turned into points that were killer plays. And then we also, there was a block charge, tough call, not an easy call. We were on the wrong side of a block charge. And credit that Oregon team. They were an awesome team. Dana's an awesome coach, Final Four team. But as great as it was, having gotten back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since Lamar Odom back then, and as awesome as an experience as it was to get there, beat Creighton, and then get to that game, it's a haunting loss because we were second. We were on the doorstep of getting to a Sweet 16, maybe an Elite 8 with that team, but the Hassan Martin injury was a killer.
I was watching on one of these, preseason tours that I'm on the plane ride, Remember the Titans, and when the coach says, leave no doubt, that's kind of the best way to sum up what you guys did in 23 and 24 at UConn, because this wasn't just back-to-back. I was thinking about it, Coach K, who obviously is one of the 3 best, college coaches of all time in the modern era, went back-to-back in 91-92. They had the UNLV game in 91, and in 92 they had the Leitner Kentucky game. So they went back-to-back, but obviously there were games that hung in the balance. Billy D, I remember, in 2007, was in the Elite 8 against Oregon. They had Aaron Brooks, and it was a 2-point game and a half. Right. You guys ripped through 2 NCAA tournaments like a chainsaw through butter. 12 wins by an average of 21.7 points per game. But historically speaking, we could go the rest of our lives, people may never see another back-to-back champion, but let alone that dominant. So I go back to this. How can Dan Hurley be insecure if your name is on that forever?
Because it doesn't mean anything today. It's going to be great. I think, when the career's over and I go into civilian life, and I could look back at those moments, but really all that matters right now is tomorrow and this season. Nothing else matters. I mean, those record-setting teams with the NCAA tournament dominance, and if you really look at it, it was really a 2-year dominance.
Yes.
If you took out that January from the year before, and I know you can't just remove a month. It's kind of hey, if my aunt was my uncle, I think we know how the rest of that goes, right? But I would say, if you really look at those 2 years, the way that the 23 team dominated the non-conference, and they were all double-figure, dominating victories. You have that tough January. You lose that Big East tournament semifinal game to Marquette. Otherwise, that was a total dominant 2-year run. And it wasn't like we inherited the same players. We lost some key players from 23, and then did it with with a totally different team with a different identity.
You bring up the Marquette loss, and you also in the book brought up the loss in 22 when you lost to Villanova and Jay Wright, who obviously multiple national championships, 4 Final Fours, and you were really hard on yourself for how you handled your team after that loss in the Big East tournament. How much did that experience and having the carryover to the New Mexico State game in 2022 when you were upset kind of teach you a lesson that you're going to separate the Big East tournament from the NCAA tournament moving forward as a coach?
It just starts with I think leadership is looking in the mirror first off. It had been easy for me, after that second first round failure to blame the assistants, blame the guy who had the scout. Just look at the players and say, hey, these guys didn't play hard enough or we weren't tough enough. There were there were roster construction things that needed to be addressed. There were decisions that I had made. I'm the architect of these teams. Well, I'm the carpenter of these teams, right?
That's Brad's.
Right, I am the carpenter. So, again, there were issues with, how I was putting together the personalities and the skill sets. For me, in my mind, it was enough to be culture, toughness, will, athleticism is going to get us to a national championship. No, you need guys that could process the game. You need guys that can shoot the ball. And you need guys that can pass and handle. You need like good offensive players in this era that we're in right now. And it's hard to win a 6-game single elimination tournament unless you go on scoring runs.
Yes.
Right? So looking at those two things, changing some things with our offensive system, but they were looking to mirror things. They weren't, hey, let me fire 2 of my staff members because it was my staff's fault. So that self-awareness, that looking in the mirror, led to the corrections that needed to be made, and now this year, like we had a top 75 defense in the end. You can't win the national championship or get deep in that tournament unless you're playing a top 20, top 10, top 15 defense, and also a top 10, top 20 offense. So I promise you our defense won't suck like that again this year.
I have no doubt, but that's also something I think that a lot of people don't take into consideration. You morphed into a completely different coach in the last couple of years. Like, it was blood and guts for really probably the first decade of your college career, and you transitioned. But also, after that dominant run in 23-24, it opened the door to potentially going to the NBA.
Yeah.
Did that exercise, you think, close the door on that for you?
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that I'll be a college coach to the end. It's not really... obviously it's hard to predict the future, but just in terms of where I'm most effective, the kind of the age range, the amount of control that you have over your fate as a college coach. As crazy as the portal is, as crazy as it's gotten with NIL, as chaotic as it is, not knowing whether players are going to get a 50-year or not, when it's basically October, and not knowing about potential rule changes, it's chaotic. But I still think you've got greater control, and I do think I get a chance to live my purpose, which is, you can change lives. You go to UConn and you hit it right as a coach or a player, it's a life-changing place. So hopefully I'm able to coach my last game and then walk off of Gamble, or it's not XL Center anymore.
The place you play in Hartford.
The People's Bank Arena.
People's Bank Arena. Is it harder to build a program, as you've done 3 times, or maintain it at an elite level once you become elite?
Harder to build it, but harder to build it back then. It's cheaper now. It's an easier process. I think you couldn't be lazy. I think you could do it. And lazy may be the wrong word, but you can build. You can be very transactional. I think back when we first got the job, I think pre-portal, pre-NIL, you had to grind out 11 and a half months a year, summer recruiting. It had to be player development. It had to be culture building. Like, it had to be all those things. And I think now, obviously, you can shortcut things now and still put together a formidable team, which was why I was kind of happy to get my championships, when I got them. And I think it was organic, and I think it was old school how we built the program.
Name of the book is Never Stop, Dan Hurley with Ian O'Connor. Available on Amazon now if you want to order online. A great, great read about the highs and the lows of dealing with championship expectations, but also the resiliency needed to succeed in life. I could do a promo right now.
Well, it's not a merry-go-round. It's a roller coaster.
It is a roller coaster, and that was probably a good transition to last season for you, because you came in obviously talking three-peat, but I look at the season from my perspective with 30,000 feet out. Nobody talks about the fact that you obviously didn't have the same caliber of personnel, or the fact that your best player, Liam McNeely, was out for a month. And with all that happened, you still, again, had a chance to beat the eventual national champion in the second round of the tournament. So given all those things, given the lack of resources and talent, why still does that linger so much for you?
Yeah, I think, because it could have been better. The season, as many challenges as the team dealt with, the burden of playing for a three-peat. So the uniform, I think, was a little extra heavy for that team. Wasn't necessarily a group that thrives with that kind of external, all eyes on us. I think, we kind of wilted a little bit. And then the things that kind of set the group back, the injury to Liam, I think, it cost us games. It cost us
a month.
It cost us a chance to kind of grow and develop. And then having to play Hassan Diarra, just having to kind of play him the amount of minutes that we did, his physical deterioration as the season went on, really hurt the team. With that said, though, we were still a couple of losses that were very preventable, games we gave away, and games that were bad losses really took our seeding.
Which ones stand out to you?
Well, the Colorado at the Horn, which again,
Yakimovsky.
Yeah, I mean, I played a huge role in that with my volcanic ego explosion out there in Maui, where I did a horrible job coaching the team. Obviously the one at Seton Hall. I mean, you drop seed lines when you have those games on your resume at the end of the year. If you don't lose those games, we may have been a 5 seed.
Yes.
You literally probably drop 3 seed lines. Then you get the Villanova game on the road, and so there are games, like maybe there's a 3-game difference where you could be a 4 seed like we were in 23 when we won it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people that look at my intensity during a game and wonder why I've got so much intensity, passion, life or death, struggle, mentality, battle, fighting for your life. Because in college basketball, John, you know this, every game matters. Every game is absolutely critical because you're either playing for a conference championship in the regular season or every game you're seeding for the tournament is on the line.
But you talk about your temper. You talk about, obviously, the demand you have.
Yeah.
It's no different from Wagner. I was there on Staten Island, so I understand why the showcase right now and the platform is more.
Yeah.
But it's the same person that was, getting on Kenny Ortiz for turning the ball over.
Yeah. I think...
that was Wagner's point guard, by the way, for those who aren't,
Yeah, Kenny Santa Clara.
In the Cable Car Classic.
Cable Car Classic.
That's right.
Let's go, KO. What'd you ask me?
But you were driven, to a dark, dark place last season. And, we're doing this interview right now in a television studio. Was there ever really a thought, and I know you talk about it a little bit, to just saying, I don't want to coach anymore and I'm just going to, be in the media? I mean,
listen, it was all these things, just the perfect storm of, obviously the back-to-back years with the Lakers thing. So ego, from an ego standpoint, you go into the season last year and, you've got the magic dust, right? This year, no matter how you feel about the team in the summer, when you see the flaws, in your mind, when you take the court, the magic's going to happen. So, so the championship fatigue, let's say, with the Lakers thing, then the total just disappointment and ego explosion, and the coaching mad and coaching frustrated throughout the year. Then now when that ends, you really, the whole year, you're critiqued. Your style's critiqued. You're walking by the TV in the morning in the coach's locker room and...
Can you get to a point where you tune all that out, though? Where you don't look at the TV, where you don't look at social media?
If you're going from your locker to another door and First Takes on and Stephen A. Smith is defending you or his co-host is on there crushing you, you do hear it, so I guess it's Kamani's got to turn the TV off. That would be helpful. So I think, but even if you're not listening to it, you're getting text messages while you're being scrutinized and a little bit, beat up from a media standpoint. You've got family members and old friends texting you, "Hang in there, it's okay." Right. So even if you don't hear it, you know that there's some type of external reaction to, combustible Dan. So I would just say all those things. NIL portal, madness, all those things combined. Alex is going to be in the draft process now for 6 weeks. Yeah. I was, I don't know how serious was I about it in the end. Listen, I went and saw the Lakers, because it was something that I thought I needed to consider.
Yeah.
And that's similar with the TV thing. It was like, do I have a couple conversations? while I'm kind of recovering. But in the end, it took 2 days to kind of snap out of it. And get locked in on trying to put together a group of people that would have a legitimate chance to go do it.
But you're somebody that was born to be a coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's reflected with, the pride you take in your job. Could you imagine a life without coaching? What would you do?
Well, I can't imagine a wife for my wife. I mean, what would she do? I don't.
Oh, no, a life. Could you imagine a life without
No,
coaching?
I know.
Yeah.
I added wife.
Oh, okay. You added wife.
Yeah, because, obviously in the book it talks about her not being too pleased with me early on in marriage. And, I do want to have a part of my life. It's tough being a coach's wife.
Yeah.
It's tough being a coach's son or the family of a coach. I mean, you don't see him a lot. And when you do see him, he's pretty on edge, or the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. So I do want to have a part of my life that is not this, because I love my wife. I would like to experience more of a civilian life, with my family.
So how much longer could you see yourself coaching? Is this something you could do like Kay, like 75? Do you think you could go to 75 like Coach K did, or be like Coach Pitino and be in their 70s and coaching and still obviously having that, desire?
I think those coaches, they all have the desire. I just think when I can't do it exactly the way that I'm doing it right now, like when I can't do it 11 months a year, 11 and a half months a year, full tilt, foot on gas, like on the road recruiting, practicing at 6 a.m. with the team in the summer so I can get the Peach Jam for a 1 o'clock game, land on Sunday at midday, practice Sunday night with it. Like when I can't work at that intensity level, when I can't drive an organization that way every single day at a championship level, I don't want to pace myself. I feel like the University of Connecticut, I feel like the fans, I feel like the people of Connecticut, I feel like the players that I coach, especially when you're coaching players for only a year, maybe two, or you've got such a crazy fan base and a state that's so impacted by how the winter goes. Like, they don't deserve a coach that is pacing himself so he can get to 72. I'd rather go to the max, and maybe I get to 62, but I did it all out, and I took it as far as I could get it and take it. And then I give it to a younger guy that can give it that type of energy.
Well, and that energy, I'm sure, will be put to work this winter, because I know you've probably, given how last season ended, probably haven't been as excited for a season maybe as the one you're about to coach. Yeah. Give us your thoughts on the roster you were about to take into 25-26.
Yeah, fun team. I think deep team. I think deep team like 23. I think I love. I love all aspects of the team potentially. We've got questions we've got to answer at the defensive end, but I think that we've got a chance to get championship level play at point guard, and I think we got some real depth there. I think we've got enough at center, just like we did last year.
Yeah.
I think coming off of having guys like Klingon and Adama Sanogo, two incredible players, we were able to get the center production last year. But perimeter defense, point guard play, we got all types of firepower on the wing with Solo Ball, Braylon Mullen, Caravan, Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross, Jacob Furphy. I mean, this is a deep and talented roster that is, I think the defense will be fixed by the peer pressure that if you don't guard, your asses can be on the bench.
Which newcomer makes the biggest impact for UConn?
There's a couple. You got the 2 point guards to fortify that position with Malachi and Silas. We got Braylon Mullins, who's a flamethrower. I think Ryba's going to be awesome. I think this guy is like, the things reputationally about him, big, skilled, 7-footer, offensive game, advanced. But this is a guy that wants to show, his critics or the people in the basketball world that he's also going to rebound the ball at a high level and protect the rim like a center. So, we've got a big three in Caravan and Taris Reed and Solo Ball, but we also got depth.
Who's been the biggest surprise?
biggest surprise I say is that I don't want to get into this again in the preseason, and jinx the guy, but Jaden Ross, man, if this guy can take what he looks like in these practices, this 6'7", 3-and-D wing that's way above the rim, and a guy that can, play off a closeout and drive. I mean, this is a guy that has like NBA traits that when teams come in the preseason and they're like, this guy, man, this is like, he's going to have a big year, right? Well, I think, Jay Ross is that guy, and Jay Ross has just got to get out there and do it. I know we talk about him a lot this time of year. This guy's got to get out there and do it.
And I think one of the exciting things for the UConn fan this year, and for the college basketball fan, is you've put together the best non-conference schedule in the history of UConn basketball. You're in the Garden twice, Illinois on Black Friday, Florida, the last 2 national champions in the Jimmy V Classic. You're going to play at Kansas. You're playing against BYU in Boston, Arizona, and Texas at home. What is it like as a coach to have these type of billboard games to get ready for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, when I announced, I guess, or complained that I was not going back to MTEs, the sore loser Dan after Maui, that's not really the point. The point was, the ability that you now have to cherry pick the absolute best games that you can put together in a non-conference. During the heart of college football season, while the NFL, is full speed ahead, you've got to do things. We've got to play the type of games that are going to get, basketball fans and casual sports fans, not the hardcores like you, who never stop.
The name of the book is Never Stop.
Never Stop, guys.
Dan Hurley with Ian O'Connor, available on Amazon. You can see right there, it's in hardcover. Go ahead.
So who's not dying to see UConn at Kansas, or that early season game in Boston, with BYU, with AJ coming back to where he grew up, and, like 2 top 5 potential teams there, or, St. John's playing Kentucky. Like, these are like, and I think for us, we got a chance, as great as this year is, I think next year's, we got a chance to even be better. Old rivals, you try to get back on the schedule, as well as trying to get more of, the blue bloods together.
Well, I want to ask you that. Is there anybody else, you're playing so many great programs. Is there any other programs that you look at and say, we'd love to do a series with them, or we'd love to play them, that aren't on the schedule?
Yeah, I think we've got great communication. I think a lot of the top programs right now are talking to each other, and my GM, Tom Moore, is hard at work, putting things together. So I think that there's a taste for this. I think there's an understanding, as we're in revenue sharing right now, as programs, that we've got to play games in venues that are going to generate the most money. And I think that's been one of the most positive things for college basketball with NIL, is now like programs are getting forced to play these types of games to generate big gates in November and December.
You were very hard on me a couple of years ago when I talked up the Seaport District in Boston. I think I stayed there when I went to like one of your practices in the summer. But you guys are going back to the place where obviously you had the 2024 regionals, and that place was, UConn North, really, when you guys played Illinois and played San Diego State. UConn has made really a habit of playing in the Garden every year in New York, and we know that. But could we see an annual game in Boston?
Yeah, we'd like that. I think it's, we're obviously very comfortable in New York. There's going to be opportunities even, not just MSG, but maybe into Barclays. We enjoyed our time in Barclays there a couple of years ago. But yeah, I bought into your whole
Poor Stetson.
Yeah. I was convinced we were going to
lose to the 16 seed?
Yeah. No, I could see the ticker, and I could feel that. I think I complained privately about the selection committee, because they were a tough 15 in my mind.
16. Tough 15 seed.
They were a tough 15, and we were the number 1 overall seed, playing them as a 16.
Right.
So
the final score reflected, though, that.
Yeah. So, but moving back to your point about Boston, I think I bought in. I'm bought in now. After that
Seaport District is nice.
I'm bought in, and then the performance the last time we were in Boston has definitely made me a fan of going back to Boston. That weekend in TD Bank, to go to the Final Four, to give us a chance to go and get that second one in a row, and then the Husky fans, I think they enjoyed Boston.
How often do you think about going back to the Final Four?
You know what? You're so process driven. I mean, you are so dialed into, what player is not where you need him to be, or who are you happy with, or what do we got to tweak with the way that we're playing offense, defense? What should tomorrow's practice plan look like? How long should we go? How much film should we watch? What type of brainwashing should we do with some type of part of a podcast or some type of, you're so dialed into driving your team to get better that it doesn't, like thinking about those things doesn't hit, until you get later in the year. For me, even the 24 team, I didn't start really thinking about the Final Four. You're talking about seeding. You're talking about, hey, guys, we got to finish this regular season. Like, we can't piss away the Providence game on the road at the end of 24 because we could lose the overall top seed to Purdue. Right. So guys we're going to overall top seed, first time in program history. That's really the only time it comes up. You don't start really saying to yourself, man, I got a Final Four team until you probably finish the regular season, know that your team has the capability, and then you start saying to yourself internally, man, I better get there with this team because this is a legit team. So the pressure built for me after we played that dominant game at Providence to end the 24 regular season, that a lesser team, because Providence was on the bubble.
Yeah.
If Providence wins that game with Carter, they got a chance to get in the tournament by beating the overall number 1 seed. So only a special team would have gone in there and got down, I think, 15, we got down 17-2, and then we're up 15 at halftime.
Yeah.
So that's when you know you have
you gotten over, though, living a life of every season is national title or bust? Have you gotten over that?
No, it's awesome.
So you're still going to go through the season where if we don't win a national championship that, we failed? Like, if you get to the Final Four and it's an overtime game against Houston, a great program, and they win 84-80, is it still going to be like the gates of hell brutality?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a level of satisfaction.
So how do you enjoy the season?
You don't. I've said this. The season it's suffering, and it's relief. It's suffering. It's relief. It's relief. Extreme suffering, right? Like that's what goes on. Now, like, listen, if you're the coach at Rhode Island, and you win the Atlantic 10 tournament, you go to the NCAA tournament and you beat Creighton, and then you do lose that heartbreaker classic game against that Oregon team. Yeah, I mean, part of you feels like you did a good job.
Right.
But you also, too, part of you knows that it could have been better. It could have ended even better. So, yeah, I think maybe at the end of your career you look back and you say, like, hey, here are my total career accomplishments. Hopefully you've got multiple Final Fours and national championships and all those things. But if the season doesn't end in a victory, ultimately, and you're the coach of the 6-time national champion UConn Huskies, just in the last 30 years, we double or triple, quadruple some of the best programs in the country in terms of championships. How do you, with a straight face, say that anything but that is what you're in it for?
Yeah, and a lot of college basketball people are in it too for big games. And let's wrap on this. What do you think those games are going to be like this year with St. John's?
Oh, those will be fun. I mean, those are the best games, because I think the worst times as a coach is when you're playing a game that does not have the spice, that does not have the build-up, that doesn't have any of that, because now you've got to generate things with your team to try to, really maximize their interest and their preparation and the understanding that every possession is going to be life or death in this one. So those are the games that are the most fun, the ones that have the fans excited, the ones that are going to pull in a big rating, the ones that are going to get the eyeballs and the attention. And you obviously you have respect for certain programs that are able to do it at a certain level, at a high level. So there's for me, there's a dislike for people that are trying to get what you want. I don't. It's a pretty much a zero-sum game here, where one of us is going to win the championship in the Big East, regular season. One of us is going to win the Big East tournament. I don't think that you have much of a chance to be friendly when you're both are in this zero fight to the death for the championship, top of the mountain.
But you have a reverence, and you always have had a reverence for great coaches. So I know there's a mutual respect on both sides there.
I've been able to achieve what I've been able to achieve in my career because I've studied the great coaches.
Yeah.
I've studied the Rick Pitino's. I've studied the Tom Izzos, the Coach K's,
Billy Donovan,
the Billy Donovan, Coach Calhoun. My dad. I didn't study. I lived it. The great football coaches, the Bill Parcells, the Bill Walshes. I mean, I've got great respect. But Rick Pitino's still an active coach.
Yeah.
And we're both fighting for the same thing. So there's always going to be a little bit of edginess to the relationship.
And we know you're guaranteed to play twice this year. Yeah. There could be a third meeting, maybe on a Saturday night in March at Madison Square Garden. And who knows, maybe there'll be a fourth meeting in Indianapolis. Because if that ever happened, if it was 8:47 and Ian Eagle was calling UConn St. John's in the Final Four, it would be like a Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior WrestleMania 6 or an Ali Frazier or a Tyson Holyfield. It would be that epic, and you know as well as I do, this is only September. The name of the book is Never Stop, Dan Hurley with Ian O'Connor. Get it right now. It's a great, great tool for people who want to go through, obviously, all that life throws at them and how to be resilient, how to be self-confident. Dan Hurley, who has said multiple times that if his life became a movie, Billy Bob Thornton would probably get the lead role. That's to be determined.
Yeah. The book reads like a movie. You do that when you read it. You say, this is a freaking movie. Could Billy Bob, could he sell basketball, coach? Could he sell it? But I think the edge, sometimes the language, the edge.
Yeah. His demeanor, though, in movies, is a little bit different than yours.
Well, Landman, he's a monster.
He's a monster.
Landman, he's a monster.
If I didn't tell you when I first saw you today, it's great to finally meet you in person. That's Dan Hurley, the UConn coach, two-time national champion, future Naismith Hall of Famer. The Huskies looking for their third national championship in 4 seasons. That's Dan Hurley. I'm John Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.